are y'all's roles? And I'm saying y'all, sorry, y'all are dealing with a country, Southern, all right, so just ignore that. But what are y'all's roles within the organization?
So I'm the chief exec and chairman, and I set the organization up back in November of 2016. And Sarah is membership manager. Dan Lahoure, who's just joined us, is the chief finance officer. Adam, who should be joining us, is the legal counsel. And if Dan Passmore joins us, Dan is the technical manager. So we're all members of the council. The council is responsible for implementing the strategy of the Fitness Racing Federation, which is set by the board. And everyone here is a volunteer. None of us are paid. We have been dealing with this for between 4 and 2 years, depending on when people became involved. And we have just in the last 6 months or so had another step change in the amount of activity demanded of us to continue to pursue the objectives of the Federation. And there's been obviously some interesting developments in the sport more broadly. And I think there's still quite a lot of flux. There's a lot of things going on out there. There's a lot of developments that are very interesting. But that's what we are doing as individuals within the Federation.
Okay. Yeah, that was perfect. So actually, I'm going to try to use that. I may have to edit and swap that part around because that intro was really good. So, you know, as I had messaged Sarah on Instagram, you guys have had a stream of new affiliations within the Federation. And so I'm going, what in the world are those guys over there doing? One, for other federations that are out there that want to be able to mimic the success that you guys are having. Two, if I don't know anything about the IF3, the Fitness Wrestling Federation, specifically for you guys, what's the deal? Who are you guys? What are you doing? And then if I'm an organization, what's in it for me, right? That's just the old acronym WIFM. Why would I become an affiliated facility? So that's kind of the major topics that I want to try to get to, and then we'll get into some more specifics. Harry,
Perfect.
You have something ready to say.
Yeah, no worries. Well, look, Michael. I think you asked 3 questions. Then I'm going to answer the second and third one, and then I'm going to come to Sarah and ask Sarah to talk about the affiliation scheme in detail. And just some of the feedback that she's had from the affiliates that have come to the Fitness Racing Federation. So a lot of people have very little idea about how sports governance works. And I think it's quite interesting the difference between the way sports governance works in the United States and the way it works in the UK and perhaps other Anglophone countries. In the United States, sport is generally dominated by very large brands. You've got the NFL, you've got the NBA, you've got Major League Baseball, and the governing bodies, and there are governing bodies for each of those sports, they're very, very, very small, and they're not very influential. Now, I'm not making a value judgment about that, I'm just making an observation. But if you come over onto our side of the pond, it's very, very different. The governing bodies are much more powerful and influential than some of the leagues and brands of sport. Now, to illustrate that, you could take the Football Association. The Football Association, which is the national governing body for soccer, sets the rules for the sport of soccer, but is also a means of channeling tens and tens of millions of pounds of government money and money raised from commercial deals into the grassroots sport. And the role of governing bodies in the UK is generally, when they are recognised sports, is to participate in government programs to tackle things like obesity, to tackle all of the consequences of inactivity, to try and make people more active. So for us as a federation, not for profit, established for the purposes of seeking recognition for the sport of competitive functional fitness. The goal for us is recognition by the UK government, both that this is a bona fide sport and that we are the national governing body of that sport. So that answers the first question. The second question is well, why would anyone want to affiliate with us? Well, the answer is that if you affiliate with a body like us, if you become a club, then once we are recognized and we are a recipient of government funding, we are then able to disperse that funding to the clubs, because the clubs are the best placed people in the community to deliver the benefits from pursuing the sport, whether that's just in terms of the training, where you're pursuing functional fitness, or whether you're an actual athlete at any level and you are competing. Now, to illustrate this in terms of the kind of money that we're talking about, if you take a equivalent sport in terms of the number of people who participate, in the UK, we estimate that about 75 to 80,000 people participate in some form of competitive functional fitness. And about 150,000 people are taking recognized functional fitness classes. Not all of them in CrossFit affiliates, probably only about 50%. An equivalent sport for that is table tennis. And in the 8 years between 2009 and 2017, table tennis in the UK received over 16 million pounds, about 20 million US dollars in government funding. And that worked out at about 14,000 pounds per club for things like basic equipment, coaching, and all of the sorts of things that are necessary for the delivery of training. But also it funded the national championships, it funded regional championships, it funded local leagues, it funded teams being sent away, it funded anti-doping programs, believe it or not, I know it's table tennis, and all of the other things that go with a sport and structure it and make the thing sustainable. So for the affiliate, you're getting an access to that kind of funding to replace the equipment in your gym, to help out with things like local tax rates, to get recognized coaching programs at a cheap rate, not at a rate that is designed to generate profits for a commercial organization. And you are able to have a confidence that there is a much broader plan for the sport, a whole sport plan that is driving participation and is driving people to your gym. Because it's going from schools, it's hitting all the sorts of demographics and social classes that it's very difficult for a commercial enterprise to reach. So that's what's in it for the affiliate. Sarah, I'm going to come to you now and answer that first question about how the uptake has been and what some of the feedback has been from the affiliates, and how much further potential do you think there is for us to penetrate that market more. And then, Michael, what I might do is just come back about what lessons might be for some of the other national federations around the globe.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Sarah, and I do definitely want to get to that, but I kind of want to, Harry, if it's okay, I want to go back and kind of a couple of questions there in what you said. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning when you guys decided to found the Fitness Racing Federation. That seemed like a lot of F's there. So what was it that made you go, okay, we need an organization? I see a need out there, because obviously there were already facilities out there that were practicing functional fitness, that were doing CrossFit. If you're a CrossFit affiliate, people were involved. So why was it that you just took a step back and go, hey guys, we need an organization to help with all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question, Michael. So in 2016, July 2016, I was hired by a company called the European Fitness League. And the European Fitness League had as its primary purpose the creation of a continental-wide league. You may recall back in 2016, I think the National Grid League in the US was, I think that was it was either their launch season or it was the season after their launch season. I can't quite remember. It wasn't going to be identical to that. It was going to be based on 12 people teams, 6 men, 6 women, 2 masters athletes, 1 male, 1 female. And we were looking to find the fittest box in continental Europe, through local competitions going up to national competitions, and then national champions coming in a 12-country league. And we were pursuing major broadcast deals with European broadcast networks. There's a network called the European Broadcast Union. And when we were preparing the pitch for that in 2015, so before I joined, but I was consulting and assisting with that pitch. When we were preparing that pitch, I said to the guys, the first question that the EBU is going to ask you is who's the international federation governing the sport, and who's the national governing body in the UK and the other national governing bodies in Europe who are going to provide the framework for this competition, things like the rules, the field of play, the guarantee of equipment, the anti-doping, etc. And our answer was that, well, none of that exists. Absolutely none of it exists. So two of the guys I was consulting for, they went to Switzerland. They had that conversation with the European Broadcasting Union. Much of it was very positive. They loved what they saw about the sport. They loved our show reels. The pitch that was prepared was extremely professional because the people behind the European Fitness League are very well respected in the UK CrossFit community and very commercially savvy. But it all came down to, well, if you want us to invest this much money, you know, I think it was, if I said 500 million, I meant 500,000 euros in providing the finance for this thing. We're not doing it without governing structures because it's too risky. You know, there's nothing there behind it. So we came away from that and we thought, well, absolutely, they're right. You know, who says the rule is this? Who says this programming is good or bad? Where is the funding coming from anti-doping? Which athletes are we testing? Are we doing them in competition or out of competition? What is the field of play? How many people can you get in a field of play safely? What should the floor be made of to make it safe? How many paramedics should you have? If you're doing things overhead, are you allowed to do it out past a certain point of fatigue? All of these questions, there's just no one to answer it. And even today, we're still not quite there yet as a mature sport. So we realized that there was no commercial value in the sport without governance, and that was a commercial perspective. But from the other perspective, we realized that governance was the key to everything, not just the commercial value of commercial enterprises. It was governance that was going to give athletes longevity. It was governance that was going to give athletes a safe field of play. It was governance that was going to deliver a clean sport, or at least an attempt at a clean sport. It was governance who was going to deliver broadcast. It was governance that was going to do all of these things. And that is as true today as it was when we set this back up in November 2016. And we were the first national governing body in competitive functional fitness in the world. And then Gretchen and James and others came together and set up the International Functional Fitness Federation, I think in July 2017. And I've been following OPEX for a while, one reason or another. And as soon as I heard about that, I got on the phone to Jim Crowell, said, can you get me on the phone to James? James spoke, he introduced me to Gretchen, and then we affiliated with the International Functional Fitness Federation, and we're 100% behind what they're trying to achieve.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, so a lot of moving parts, and that's interesting how it started, which it's not that it's... when I know the IF3, I guess I should say, obviously better than I know the Fitness Racing Federation. So to kind of hear that background, I've never heard that side of it before. And that's just not exactly what I would have thought how it stemmed from. So that's really interesting. And then part of it too is I'm trying to wrap my brain around governance having such a big role. And like you said, I guess it's because things are so different in the US as far as the brands having the major role and sponsors having the major role, whereas the governance is not as much so. So it's just a little bit different in my head. So, and I had some other questions there, but I want to get to Sarah because I know Sarah's been sitting there patiently waiting to talk about the affiliates.
Okay, so in terms of the affiliates, obviously you've noticed that we've had, you know, a great deal of success over the last sort of, probably 2 to 3 months with people starting to see who we are, notice what we're doing, and want to be part of what the Fitness Racing Federation is doing in the UK. I think the big draw for affiliates coming on board is that they recognise that they want and need more from the next level of organisation above an affiliate. They want to feel supported. They want information. They want to see that there is a future for clean sport. The feedback from the affiliates that have been joining is that they're 100% in support of anti-doping. They want to see the sport clean. They want to see anti-doping tested throughout the competition spectrum in the UK. And they understand that is something which is positive for the sport, rather than something that's negative. And I think for those affiliates who are practicing functional fitness, they see the affiliation as their step towards becoming more of a professional organisation. Functional fitness and CrossFit's, always been sort of looked upon within the UK by official bodies as something that is not particularly professional, doesn't have standards, etc. So by us providing the framework and the professional framework and the standards to support them, we're starting to chip away at that negative view that does exist. I think crucially for the affiliates, it's what they get by being affiliated to us, both now and in the future, that is the draw. So, as a governing body, we bring governance, we bring structure, we bring representation for the sport in terms of within the UK. We bring protection for the affiliates and for the athletes. But we're also then able to bring commercial structures in place, but also additional benefits that provide benefit for the affiliate and for the athletes. So within the UK, the other governing bodies that exist, when affiliates join and individuals join, one of the big common benefits that they receive is a personal injury, personal indemnity insurance as a coach and as a participant. So if they were to become injured practicing the sport of functional fitness within an accredited affiliate or at a national championship or national competition, there's a level of protection there that is offered to them to give them some personal injury insurance. And it's something that it's prioritizing the welfare and the safeguarding of the participants amongst everything else. Because we are not for profit, we're not driven by the commercial drivers that you would normally see within a brand. So we're able to put the athlete and the affiliate first at all times. So it's always about the sport, it's about the affiliate, and it's about the athlete and what's best for those three things, as opposed to what's best for a brand. So the affiliates, by being accredited and being affiliated with us, once we achieve national recognition in the UK, it opens up the opportunity for them to gain direct funding from their local sports councils. Again, everything's it's structured very sort of regimentally within the UK. So you can get lots of grants to help with purchasing equipment, to help with coach development, to help in investing in facilities. There's a broad spectrum of grants and finance opportunities available to you once your sport is recognised and you are part of that official body. And again, affiliates are going, that's a great opportunity, because we're able to accreditate ourselves as an affiliate, and then our coaches can then start to get some funding towards helping them become accredited in recognised qualifications within the UK. So all the coach education that we've been pulling together as well, it's all been accredited, and it's all been accredited within the UK, and we're looking now to accredit it within the European qualification framework as well. So it's actually been through and being verified by an educational framework and a qualification standard, which is recognised and transferable throughout the whole of the UK, and then it will be throughout the whole of Europe. So the individual coach who gains that qualification, which can be funded from grants achieved through the local sports councils, that's then recognised across all industries and across all areas of the UK. It's not something which is just specific to a brand. It's actually recognised, and it's comparable and levelled against the rest of the qualification framework within the UK. So if you are a level 2 or a level 3 or a level 4, etc., that is comparable to any other level 2, 3 or 4 qualification. So by just bringing these professional standards in and having this regulation, it starts to professionalise the sport, professionalise the affiliates themselves, and supports the affiliates so that they can operate more efficiently and more effectively. Obviously at the moment, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's been a big opportunity for us to really provide our affiliates with the up-to-date, relevant information for them to operate safely. So interpreting the national guidelines that come from government, and then they go out to UK Active, out then to the community. But as you can imagine, it's full of, it's very complicated. It's quite boggy, lots of legal terminology in there, open to lots of different interpretations because, they're regulations. So what we've been able to do is to interpret all that for the affiliates, put it into documentation that is easy to interpret, easy to understand, and supply them with all that to give them the operational guidelines so that they don't have to do that themselves. They can come to us and we can support them and do that for them. So say, hey, these are the guidelines to help you operate safely during the COVID pandemic. And when those guidelines change, if there's tightenings, if there's relaxation of them, then we're going to keep you updated with that. So you can rely upon us as your governing body to ensure that you have the most up-to-date information. And, again, it's just part of the service that we offer, and that is wanted by the affiliates. They want to feel supported. So if they have questions, if they're unsure about anti-doping practices and where do I go for the information, well, they come to us. We're their point of contact. And if we don't have the information, we get the information and interpret it for them. It's almost like the big brother looking after the little brother. That's what we are. And I suppose within the UK, there was obviously some backlash that was felt, likewise as it was across the globe, with affiliates de-affiliating from CrossFit. And one of the things that they were really demanding was to feel that they were informed, that they were communicated to, that they were valued, and that their needs were a priority to us, and that we were going to look after them, whether it was during this pandemic or during another crisis or, or a development issue, whatever it might be. And that's the affiliates. The athletes are all...
If you can, I just want to stop you right there, Sarah. I want to kind of hit on this a little bit more because I want to be clear here. You guys have gyms that are affiliated that are also CrossFit affiliated.
Yes, we do.
So there's not a distinction of I need to either de-affiliate with CrossFit or not. So they can be CrossFit affiliated and then be affiliated. So when you talk about that, because one of the things you mentioned, which I think is great, is that it's about the athletes, it's about the facilities, and it's not about a brand, which I think is huge. But what about those facilities, those athletes that are all about the brand? You know, they want to stay connected with the CrossFit brand, whether they're athlete or facility. How does that kind of interact with one another between you guys and the brand?
Yeah, there's no conflict for us. There's certainly two affiliates who spring to mind straight away, who are 100% CrossFit affiliates, and they're also affiliates of the Fitness Racing Federation. As the governing body, there is no requirement or no distinction for affiliates not to be part of other global brands or global communities or associations. You often find that CrossFit affiliates will also be affiliated to British Weightlifting, which is the governing body for weightlifting in the UK. And that's because their athletes are competitive in the sport of weightlifting, and they're entering British championships, etc. And they're also offering weightlifting clubs within their affiliates. There is no clash. Lots of our affiliates who are not affiliated to CrossFit, they are also affiliated to British Weightlifting, and that is really not. There's no clash there. They feel passionate about the sport, and they want to be part of both. And for us, like I say, there's no clash. There's no it doesn't have to be them or us. We're not the same as the commercial brand. We're not for profit. We're governance, and within the UK, Harry's explained how important that is to be able to operate and to actually grow as a sport.
So
now, go ahead, Harry.
Very quickly, Michael, they're two different things, mate. CrossFit, we all started out in CrossFit, and it still does an immense amount. It really does. And somebody who sets up an affiliate in the UK is doing so because they're passionate about the training methodology as a great way to prepare your average person to be ready for anything. And good on them. And what the CrossFit affiliation fee does for those people is it's brand recognition. If somebody comes to a new area and they want to find that type of training methodology, they're going to Google CrossFit, or they're going to go onto the CrossFit website and they're going to find the local affiliate, because they know what they're going to get when they go there. And for the affiliate owner, it's a great marketing because people know CrossFit. So that's brilliant, and long may that continue. But what we're doing is we're showing to the government that through the affiliations that we have a penetration into the community, not just the CrossFit community, but a much broader community of independent gyms and PTs and all of the other things that are going on in the fitness space. And by doing so, and by setting standards, and by doing all the things that Sarah said, in the same way that all other national governing bodies do, we're demonstrating to the government that this is an actual sport. It's not a niche thing that people do training in their garages. It's not something that is just the CrossFit Games. Because if that is the case, Michael, I promise you in 10 years' time, this won't exist. It'll go exactly the same way as competitive aerobics did in the 1980s. And when I was selling this idea back in 2016, I dug out all of these videos of competitive aerobics from the 1980s, and all of the brands and all of the money that was hanging off it, and all of the competitions that were going on in the United States, and it went the way of the leotard. Now, we don't want that to happen to this sport. And if you leave this to a brand, you are really putting yourself at risk that we are losing something globally. And we're losing the ability of the community to determine the direction of the sport. And that has to be a good thing, because organizations like the Functional Fitness Federation, International Functional Fitness Federation, and the 42 other national governing bodies around the world, they're not owned by shareholders. They're not bought by hedge funds or individuals with pocketfuls of money, which have to earn a return of 20%. They're owned by their members. Their members determine the policies that govern those organizations. And through those organizations, they thereby set the direction of the sport in that country, all under the leadership of Gretchen Kettelberger, the president of the IF3. It has to be the way to go.
And that was perfect explanation there, Harry. And whoever wants to take this one, Sarah, you had mentioned that a lot of affiliates were wanting to have the anti-doping. Why? Why do we think that so many people want to make sure that that's a big part of the sport?
I think it comes down to, in the UK, there's, I suppose, is the culture of fairness and equality. And so knowing that when you are training or competing against somebody, you are on a level playing field, that it's you versus them, and it's about your preparation, about your training, potentially about the clothes that you're wearing, but not so much. But that you haven't been assisted in your development and your preparation and your performance by something else, namely drugs of some kind. And that is, it's very important to people to feel that if they've won or if they've lost to somebody, that it has been on equal terms. So if I'm clean, that the person who either comes second to me or beats me is also clean. So I really think it's founded on fairness. And yeah.
And from a personal athlete standpoint, right? If you're the athlete that's being accused, and you see it a lot on social media, right? These athletes, they train hard, hours a day. They have diets specifically designed for this. And then the first thing you see in comments is steroids, get off the roids. And if you're that athlete, it's just demoralizing. You put in all this hard work and this time and this effort, and then that's the first thing that people want to accuse you of.
Yeah,
I like the way you, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think it's for a lot of people, it's the easy thing to use to shatter somebody's achievement, is to accuse them of doping, because sometimes people do achieve incredible things, and if it's incomprehensible because you've not seen it before, when people break records, especially in athletics, we tend to go, oh, they must have had some assistance there. How did they do that? And the margins are getting smaller and smaller that people win by. And so, I just think it's the easy thing for people to say, is to accuse somebody of doping. And I think what you tend to find with social media, it's a reflection of the individual accuser, and their view towards life, etc., and people training and things, rather than as a culture. But with the anti-doping, once you're part of the scheme within the UK, you quite literally hand over the control of that to UK anti-doping. So they choose who they test, they choose when they test and how they test. And it's not influenced at all by the governing body, nor the affiliates or the athletes. It's down to them. And so, it's the luck of the draw, and it always is, if you're going to be tested or not tested. But if you're clean, then you don't have to ever worry about that.
That's right. Then Harry, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I just like the way you turned that around, Michael, because anti-doping isn't about catching the cheats only. It's also about helping clean athletes stand by their achievements and defend them. The problem is, Michael, is we're probably, in my estimation, 10 to 15 years away from being a largely clean sport. And I know that might sound apocalyptic, but on a scale of 1 to 10, anti-doping in competitive functional fitness stroke CrossFit is not even at level 1 yet. The education programs that we run in the UK for our best athletes with UKED just goes to show how far behind we are, even other sports of our size, let alone major sports like rugby or football, for example. And if, let's say, we get funding in the UK, our athletes in the national testing pool are tested out of competition 6 times a year. But you've got athletes in another country that aren't subject to any testing at all. I don't mean to be cynical, but when we come to a global competition, our athletes are then at a disadvantage. So I want to make sure that we're doing this lock, stock, and in lockstep with all of the other national federations to push anti-doping globally. Because otherwise we will never achieve what we're trying to achieve for the athletes who want to protect their achievements and for the athletes who we want to detect for cheating.
So, Harry, based upon that assessment, are you saying that you think 10 or 15 years away because of education, or you think that it's more rampant than most people would be willing to openly say?
Well, I think I think it is. I think it is very prevalent. We have had anti-doping violations, and we have not been mature enough in our disciplinary processes, and we have not had adequate funding to protect ourselves from legal challenge. The UKAD won't fund us at the moment because we're not recognised, which is understood, but they do provide advice. They're very heavily engaged in our education. But I think that the investigations that we had showed that there were very extensive networks of athletes who were engaged in at least exchanging information. And I don't think that is in any way unique globally. And the other point I would make is that the 10 to 15 years is not necessarily simply about the education required. It's about the fact that you can dope for 5 years, then get on a national testing program, and then you keep a substantial percentage of the gains that you would have gone. But from the moment you're in a national testing program, you're clean. You'll be clean every test you ever had, but you're still stronger and have, different, I don't want to say different muscle fibers, that would be ridiculous, but you know what I mean. You've got adapted muscle fibers that give you a performance advantage. So you have to have had an anti-doping program working with your teenage athletes for a good 5 years before you're sure that the athletes coming through have been subjected to robust anti-doping measures. And I think the final point I would make is the cost, Michael. It costs a fortune to run a robust anti-doping program, and the only way you can do it is with government funding. And that is pretty much true of any sport that I can think of. I'm happy to be challenged and corrected on that. But, at £300 a test, how are we realistically in a sport that doesn't have any money coming into it at all? Because all the money that goes into the sport goes into the hands of private individuals. And I know that's terrifically controversial, but it happens to be true, Michael. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the facts are the facts, right? I mean, we're not sitting here accusing anybody in particular of doping, but what we're saying is exactly what you said is true, right? You got 3 years, 5 years, 1 year before you actually make it to a competitive level to where you would even get tested. So it's really easy to lead up to that point and then get in. And so you're right. So extensive years, especially dealing with even the younger athletes. And Sarah, just so you know, I did just mute you. There's a feedback and I can't tell where it's coming from. And so I was just trying to see, and here I can ask you to unmute now. There you go. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Hey.
Yeah, I don't know where the feedback was coming from, but I was gonna mute you for just a second while we were still talking to see if we could figure out where it was coming from.
I think just adding to the anti-doping discussion there, I think what's really important is the distinction between intentional and unintentional. When people are performing functional fitness, and it's not a profession for them, so it's not the thing that they earn their money from or earn a significant amount of money from doing. It's just the awareness of what anti-doping actually is, and the coach education program that we've been running and rolling out through the affiliates, in terms of from UK anti-doping, is crucial to minimize, to the point of eliminating it as far as you can, the unintentional doping that does exist, with people just unaware of what they're putting into their body in terms of supplements, but also in terms of medication. A very clear example, we had an athlete last year who went to the Worlds in Australia for us, and he was required to have a steroid injection to his shoulder for an injury. So we had to make sure that we pulled out all the correct information for him to supply to the physician who was going to administer that, so we could make sure that he was within the anti-doping requirements so that he could compete as a clean athlete. And that wasn't because we knew there was anti-doping testing in Australia. It was about, well, we're a governing body and that's our role, is to supply the athletes with that information.
Yeah, and that's great to do it proactively too. To hear that you guys were involved on the front end, not just, oh, he had this shot and now let's see if we can't get it cleared up because of what was in that shot.
We've got to help the athletes, and we've got to help their coaches. It's all about education.
So I want to switch gears if we can and talk about something. I hate to say more fun, but away from some of the governance thing to something that everybody that would be listening is really excited about in the coming months, and that's the World Cup, the International Functional Fitness Federation. We got all kinds of stuff coming on. We got the teams, we got the masters, the teams competition, individual. So where are you guys, the Fitness Racing Federation, at? And Harry, don't forget you're muted. Dan and Dan, anytime y'all want to hop in, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you guys at as a federation with your qualifiers?
So I'll talk, Dan Lahure, you can talk about the qualifiers for our own championships. I'll just touch on the IF3s competitions.
Okay.
So for the IF3s, the Masters competition, I believe there's over 25 athletes from the UK who are registered for that. Obviously, they were released on the 1st, on Tuesday. So they've got the month to get those qualifiers done. The prize at the end of that is obviously a place for them at next year's Masters Worlds competition, which is postponed from this year and is being held in Portugal in Europe. That space is in addition to any space that is a potential reward for our own championships. So we've got the Masters comp, which is reasonably well supported in the UK. I think there's only a couple of age categories that we don't have an athlete entered into. So that's really great. And as they go for the qualifiers, they're pretty much on their own for that. But when it comes to the final, we'll be more engaged with supporting them through that, because there's a greater requirement for technical officials from the IF3 and for it to be live streamed, etc. So it goes up a game for the final. So hopefully we'll have some athletes in the final where then we'll support them in that particular event. But if I hand you over to Dan Lahure, and he can talk to you about our own qualifiers and the Masters Championships that we've got now for 2021.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Just want to check, Michael, you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. So yeah, obviously we had great plans this year to hold 2020 British Functional Fitness Championships in the UK. And as with so many competitions this year, that's all just gone completely down the toilet with the coronavirus pandemic. So we were essentially forced into cancelling that for the year. But that's a common theme across the board. So I don't think anyone's too surprised by that. But what we have done is essentially said to all the athletes that entered the 2020 qualifiers for our championships is we'll just transfer you straight to the 2021 season. All right. So all these athletes that have entered, we'll honour, we'll give them a goodwill gesture, move them to next year, and then they're there and ready to go. Obviously, what's happened since then is the IF3 decided to cancel their World Championships and replace it with the Continental Cup, which you referred to. So what we're planning on doing is essentially taking this pool of athletes that entered the qualifiers earlier in the year, and we're going to reopen our qualifiers at some point. I think we're opening them for the period of October. So what that's going to do is all the athletes that entered previously, they're going to get an opportunity to take part in those 3 tests. If they didn't complete all 3, they can finish them off. They can go back and redo them if they want to. But we're also going to open the pool again to any new athletes that want to join. Obviously, there's been a bit of momentum in the interim where the federation's gained a bit more spotlight. So we're hoping that we can gather a few more athletes into that pool as well. And what we'll do then is we'll hold those qualifiers, the online qualifiers, throughout October, and then we'll take the top 3 men and the top 3 women, and they'll progress to the Continental Cup. So it's run in stages. So continental, so I think there's Asia, East Europe, West Europe, some of the Americas. I'm not exactly sure how it's divided up, but they're all going to be live online events, very similar to how the Rogue Invitational was run. So again, as Sarah said, with the Masters athletes, what we'll do is for our top 3 men and women in the open division for the Continental Cup, we'll aim to support them again with things like technical officials and sort of technology to get them sort of live streamed and beamed into that event. So there's 2 rounds to the Continental Cup. There's an initial first round. I think it's first weekend of December. And then I think there's a 2-week break and then the next round, which kind of takes the top athletes from each of those continents and moves them into that final round. And again, if any of our British athletes make it through, then we'll aim to support them there with things like technical officials and technology. Obviously, we've also said that everyone's gonna move on into the 2021 British Championships. So again, when it comes around to next year, all those athletes plus any others that want to enter will be able to take part in the qualifiers there. I think one thing that's actually quite important to point out about our qualifiers, and again, this is something that we're striving for as a governing body in terms of independence and transparency, and something quite unique, I think, is that we didn't actually design our qualifying tests ourselves. We actually had the USA Federation design those tests. So again, when you think about how a governing body might operate as opposed to a commercial brand or a commercial competition, there's that extra layer there of governance and independence that kind of adds to the integrity, I suppose, of the competition and of the governing body as a whole and the sport as a whole, which again we feel is really quite important. And that will be the same next year again. It won't be us designing our tests. We'll look to outsource that to someone independent, perhaps another federation.
All right, so what you're talking about there is for your qualifiers, as an organization, instead of you guys, or excuse me, federation, as a federation, instead of you guys designing the test there, you're outsourcing it to another federation as to be extra sure that there's no kind of influence from anybody within the organization that might, structure something towards a favor an athlete or something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Inside knowledge.
We've actually got a few people in our council who are either owners or co-owners and affiliates, and they have athletes that could very well stand the chance of being a top athlete within the British Federation. So it was really important to us to make sure there was that layer of independence to make sure that any questions levied at us or any accusations levied at us could be completely batted away. And we know that we're right on the front foot and we're taking all the steps we can to make ourselves as independent as possible.
Appreciate you guys and trusting the good old US of A for the programming there this year. Shout out to USA Functional Fitness there. And then, so we got a lot going on. If you guys aren't familiar, people listening, watching, with what's going on with the Continental Cup, the Masters Cup, the Junior Cup, I got information up on the website, thefunctionaltimes.com. You can check that out. IF3 has that up. It's functionalfitness.sport. I'm sure you guys, what's y'all's website?
www.frfuk.org.uk.
And can I ask, this is something that is very trivial, but Fitness Racing Federation, what's the...
Yeah, good question. Yeah, good question. So when we had our very first council meeting in October of 2016, so before we went and formed the not-for-profit company, we had the UK's best ever male athlete there. We had the UK's foremost affiliate owners. We had Olympians from other sports, and we had lawyers who advised the Professional Golfers Association here. And we met at a hotel in Bath for 2 days. And it was all right, but I was the only one who was drinking, so it was a little bit dull. But we were talking about it, and it was kind of, we have to have a name for the sport. Years and years ago, somebody tried to create an octathon, 8 sports, and I know you see, there's all these kind of different formats kicking around, and we couldn't think of a name. And we actually thought about the Functional Fitness Federation, F3. And then somebody else came up with the idea of, but where's the competitive element of that? There's no kind of verb in there, like to race. So we thought, well, what about fitness racing? So we had 2 options, and we took a vote, and we voted for Fitness Racing Federation. Now, fair enough, we would probably take a different decision in 2020 than the one we took in 2016. But we don't want to confuse everything right now. So we won't be changing our name and making it consistent with the lead that has been set by Gretchen and the IF3. The reason for that is our accounts go to the government, all of our agenda, all this. So we just leave it for now. And if we get recognized in 2021, maybe the first thing we do will be to change the name of the federation. But the sport is competitive functional fitness, Michael. And Michael,
it's not. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I want to make one other point, but I'll let you come back at me and chop me off at the knees.
I would never.
So, go on.
Well, I was just going to say it's not that it's a bad name. It's just, Fitness Racing Federation. So when I first heard it or saw it, just the acronym, I was trying to think, what is the F and R, like France? Like it was just, it was throwing me off there. So the fitness racing, but it makes sense. I mean, most of the time we're racing, it's how many reps, how quickly, for time, so there's definitely a racing element. And I like how you described that there was no verb. I mean, yeah. That makes good sense.
Yeah, we
say leave it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But see, it's not my choice, mate. It'll go to a vote. Right. The community will choose. It's not us. But look, I think it's really important to say the sport is the best sport ever. I honestly think it. I mean, we're talking about the qualifiers, and we're talking about the mechanics of it. We hosted the IF3 World Championships in 2018. And our athletes were the male and female champions. Sam Briggs narrowly beat Amanda Goodman from the United States. It came down to the final test, the test of power, and they both dived across the line. And Sam Briggs was literally an arm's length ahead of Amanda Goodman. And she won it by that narrow margin. The competition was absolutely fantastic. And Mitch Adams won the men's there. And we've been sending athletes to the IF3 World Championships since 2017, when they were held in San Francisco. And we will continue to support the IF3 in their pursuit of Olympic recognition, because that will be absolutely transformative. But let me just paint a picture of what the future might look like, Michael, because I think this is where the sport will go, yeah? Look,
That'd be great.
CrossFit Games is brilliant. Who doesn't like watching the road to the games? Who doesn't like the fact that the world's best athletes are there? The reality is the world's best athletes are competing in the CrossFit Games. The world's best athletes aren't yet competing in the IF3 World Championships or our national championships. And the reason for that is that if you're a semi-pro athlete and you need the prize money and you need the exposure and the clicks, you're going to go for the CrossFit Games, and good on them. And we will support our athletes to go to compete at these international competitions and the CrossFit Games, because it's where they can show what they're brilliant at and what we love them for. But think about another sport to see how the two things can coexist. Think about triathlon. Triathlon is an Olympic sport. It's governed by the International Triathlon Union, and in the UK, it's governed by British Triathlon. But the dominant brand in triathlon is Ironman. It's worth over 650 million US dollars, because that's what somebody paid for it back in 2015, 2016. So you can have an Ironman and you can have triathlon. And that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a sport where you have a dominant brand in CrossFit, and the CrossFit Games is as admirable an outcome and a goal as getting to the Olympics or getting to a World Championships is. They can each exist beside each other, and athletes can do both. And the role of a governing body is to make sure that you've got as many people coming in at the bottom. You're reaching audiences you don't normally reach, diverse audiences, age groups. You're getting it into schools. You're bringing them into the affiliates. You're bringing them into the boxes. You're bringing them into gyms, not in tens of thousands, in hundreds of thousands. And then they're going into structures where they're getting good coaching. They're getting anti-doping education. They're getting the benefit of all the data that can be collected about how to avoid injuries and how to train well. And then out of that, you've got an elite level program for coaches and an elite level program for athletes that's grooming people from a young age and then putting them up from the best athletes around the rest of the world. And those athletes can go to the CrossFit Games and they can go to the World Championships. And if we get anywhere close where we're trying to go, they'll go to the Olympics as well, and everyone wins.
Perfectly said. I just literally saw the mic drop. Did you guys see that? It was like Harry was talking and then he just dropped it like that. That's perfect. Yeah. No, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. I love that you did that. It kind of wraps up everything that we've been talking about throughout the last hour, half hour, whatever it's been so far. So Dan, anything else? I feel like you guys hadn't had a chance much to say anything. If you guys want to chime in on anything.
I think my one point, Michael, would just be that there really isn't this conflict that certainly has been there for a little while. I appreciate it's come from a very small point. We've started from a very small point. Harry started from a very small point, and we're now slowly growing. And people are starting to realise that we're not in competition, as Harry's just mentioned. There's a lot of passionate people who do both CrossFit and are looking to help out with the functional race and fitness and other international bodies elsewhere. And that the passion comes from wanting to achieve the best for both nationally for us. It'll be recognised by UK sport, and everything that Harry's mentioned that will come from that being recognised as a sport, but then the greater picture with IF3 and that goal for being in the Olympics. And for any athlete, as you know, brilliant as the CrossFit Games will be, we want them to be able to see that there is a pathway to being recognised in a global competition that is the most watched sporting event in the world. There's no competition there between us and CrossFit. We can coexist very nicely between each other, help each other out, and that really that the way forward is for us to pick ourselves up. We can backslap each other and cheer each other all the way through to this. There's no conflict here. There's just a lot of very passionate people trying to drive the sport in the right direction. Certainly with what's come for the last 12 months, certainly oversight and more integration with more voices from those at the very bottom all the way up to the top. in the federations, really.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. One thing that I did not get a chance to talk about, and I think that it would be Mark that would be the kind of the expert on this, was the education side of things. And Sarah, you may be able to, Harry. But I know there was a post you guys talked about a while back on social media, talking about that there was this ability to convert your CrossFit level 1 to the functional fitness L2. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And if we need Mark on for that at a later point, we can certainly do that. But just for people, just a broad overview, you guys have talked a lot about education, but there are specific education courses for coaches, for trainers out there inside the Fitness Racing Federation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Go on now.
Yeah, is it all right to take that one, Harry?
Yeah.
So I actually caught up with Mark this morning on this to see where we were in terms of progress. But essentially, like Mark, as you said, Mark is our chief sports officer, so it's very much his area, and he wasn't able to join the call today. But I'm happy to kind of give you that background on what's going on in that space. So Mark has been working very hard over the last sort of 18 to 24 months developing our 6-level coach development program. So those 6 levels map across to what you'd see in a variety of other sports in the UK. So football, rugby, and basically the levels map to your sort of level of coach and where they would be coaching. So level 1 at the bottom might be your apprentice just out of school, looking to sort of get their first step on the first rung of the ladder in terms of their fitness career, right up to your level 6 coach, who would be essentially the person who is really the head coach across the entire organization. So they'd be the ones looking at selecting the coaches that would take national teams, teams to the Olympic Games, teams to national competitions and things like that. And obviously to support that coach development pathway, what we need is to make sure we've got a set of standards and a set of qualifications that allow a person to say, right, I am qualified and I am knowledgeable enough to be a level 1, level 2, level 3, so on and so forth coach. So what Mark's done and been working really hard on in the last 6 months with our training partner Transcend is working on the first 3 levels of that ladder in terms of qualifications. So what we've got now is we've got level 1 to 3 qualifications that I think Sarah touched on it earlier. Really importantly is that they are accredited by SIMSPA, who are essentially they're the regulatory body in the UK who accredit and manage and make sure that these qualifications are kind of the real deal. They're not sort of Mickey Mouse qualifications. They're really good quality knowledge. You know that if someone's got a SIMSPA accredited qualification, then they know what they're doing in their field. So we've now got those, as I said, those levels 1 to 3 ready to go. And what we're doing now, you touched on it there, is we're looking basically at helping anyone that's got a CrossFit level 1 or another qualification in the field of health and fitness to be able to transfer into our coaching pathway, recognizing the knowledge and the qualifications that they've already got. And the obvious one obviously is the CrossFit level 1 qualification, which you need in order to either own an affiliate or in a lot of cases to coach in an affiliate on your own. So what we said is, right, this is all the knowledge that people have gained as a CrossFit level 1, and this is how it maps across to our pathway. And any gaps that are there, they'll need to be tested on. So what we've set up is essentially what we call a conversion course. And all it is a fast track way of achieving your competitive functional fitness level 2 qualification whilst recognizing the knowledge that you've already got. So as I said, there's going to be some gaps there because we're a different structure to, for example, the way that CrossFit do things, but they're quite minimal, and it'll be a case of some online learning and a bit of what's called a professional discussion, so an interview. So that's our first sort of target in terms of getting people onto that coach development pathway. And what we're doing initially is we're running a short pilot of about 13 participants. And they're going to go through, as the first sort of cohort of students through that conversion course. So they've all got CrossFit level 1s or some similar health and fitness qualifications. They'll go through the course, the conversion course, and then off the back of that, we'll get some feedback, make some touch-ups to it and tweaks to our process, and then we'll look to launch this conversion course a bit more widely across the UK. So essentially anyone who's got a CrossFit level 1 in particular, or maybe they've got a personal trainer qualification that's recognised in the UK, they can look to achieve our competitive functional fitness level 2.
And then does anybody, and I'm sorry to break in there, but does this have anything to do with the IF3 as a whole, or is this very specific to the UK?
So at the moment, this is entirely unique to the UK. This is actually the first competitive functional fitness qualification worldwide. Okay. That's certainly the first one that's recognised by a body such as SIMSPA. And it is really, I don't want to kind of blow our trumpet too much, but it is blazing a trail. We've had several other federations kind of knocking on our doors saying, how have you done this? Tell us more, tell us more. And we are actually looking, as Sarah said, to kind of get this qualification not only accredited in the UK standards, but looking at taking it to sort of European standards and even worldwide, so that other federations essentially can license this qualification from us, deliver it, and then know that their coaches within their system are trained to a certain standard, so that you know the quality of coach you're going to get when you step into a competitive functional fitness environment.
Michael, sorry, Dan, just touching on what Dan's just said there, at the IF3's annual Congress, which is happening in October, the UK, so ourselves, we're actually going to be presenting on the coach education element, because it's recognised that we are so far ahead of all the other federations worldwide, in addition to ahead of the IF3 in terms of their coach education, that we can really help the other federations to develop theirs, and for us to pass on our lessons learnt, and for it to be almost a framework that can be transferred into their own unique framework within their individual countries. So it is recognised with the IF3 just how far ahead we are, and like Dan has said, we've had quite a lot of inquiries from other federations, especially within Europe, who really want us to assist them in developing their own, because it's fundamental for coaching within the sport, and it's just another one of those things that you have to have in place as a governing body to provide out to your affiliates. So like Dan said, we don't really want to blow our own trumpet, but we're going to, and we're going to and we're going to
Dan may not have wanted to, Sarah. We didn't say that you didn't want to.
Yeah. We should. We really have made huge leaps with the coach education program, and being able to map it against all the other frameworks that are out there, both that are accredited and non-accredited, is testament to the work that's gone into it. And hence that's why we're presenting at the Congress, is to really show everyone that what we've done.
And I really feel like we've come full circle now. So Harry, we said we'd kind of come back around to the how can other federations learn from what you guys are doing. So this is one way. Obviously, you guys will be presenting there. Sarah, we talked briefly too about your growth, but real quick, and then I'll kind of ask that last question there of the leadership that you guys are providing within the federations. How many, if you don't mind, how many affiliates have you guys seen in recent months? Let's just say past 3 months.
I think in the last 2 to 3 months, we've probably seen an increase of about 60 affiliates.
Okay.
That represent approximately 5,000 participants in the UK. I have got others to onboard that are sitting in the inbox waiting to be processed, but it's that's the growth that we've seen, and that's just scraping the edges of the community in the UK.
So what do you all, anybody can take this, attribute that growth to? Because like I said, I know, for instance, USA Functional Fitness, I know that they would love to have something where they had 60 affiliates in the last 3 months really wanting to get on board and get behind what they're doing or what we're doing here in the US. So what has been the key to the success lately?
It's awareness. It's just people have become more aware of what we're doing. And, there are obviously broader events that have made things of interest. People have questioned, is it right for this to come down to the whims of an individual? How do we want our sport to be run? Athletes are asking questions about how they should organize themselves. Question marks over whether or not there are any conflicts of interest within those bodies. But, there are the sport is maturing in a number of different ways. It's not just around governance, it's in a number of different ways. And we are doing well on the coaching, but there are other federations that are leading the way in other areas. The Scandinavian federations have proven to be extremely adept at linking in with their local government. They have slightly different regulations there, but they've been extremely adept at that. Some of their club schemes are well in advance of ours. So that's very, very good. And I think it's also worth noting that in some cases, just the fact that there is a national federation in some countries is a significant achievement in and of itself. The amount of effort it takes, Michael, to pull these things off the ground, your sweat, it's not equity because there's no shares, but the sweat that you put into it, the time that you're not putting into your family, you're not putting into earning money, you're looking after your future. Everyone on this call puts in hours a week, among all of the other things they're juggling because they passionately believe in what we're trying to achieve. And I think other people are now aware that there isn't the conflict that Dan Passmore was referring to. We're not trying to create a new CrossFit. That's a ridiculous thing to say. They're different. One is a commercial organization about training and has a brand called the CrossFit Games, and both are brilliant. But both of them can't secure the future of the sport. They can't deliver anti-doping. They can't deliver participation. They can't do the other things that governance can. But we wouldn't be here without CrossFit because there wouldn't be 14,500 affiliates or whatever the name is around the world. There wouldn't be the awareness of the CrossFit Games. There just wouldn't be the big community of people who are coalescing around certain ideas and things. It just wouldn't exist. You've got to acknowledge that and the groundbreaking, and we do. We've got a lot to learn as well, I think, as a federation. And this is where people like Sarah and Mark are really good because they've come from other sporting federations, and they've got experience of those governance structures. So they're really good at advising that. And also, I think Sarah can speak to this, or perhaps Dan, we've got a lot of people who are asking to come and join the federation to participate at manager level, or to participate in policy making, or to participate as officers in the federation. And all of these people are bringing with them their own experiences from other sports and things. And this makes us so much stronger as a federation. And that's another thing that's come out of the last few months that's really kind of worked in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, just it's actually, it's quite humbling looking at the wealth of what we have within the affiliates. I think people that work in fitness get a bit of a bum deal from other industries. But we have so many professionals who are affiliate owners, and they've been working within health and fitness and sport in the UK for many, many years at higher executive, senior management level, development officers, etc., across mass participation sports like soccer and rugby, but also smaller sports like, you know, boxing is relatively small in the UK. We don't have anyone from table tennis, but, you know, we've got lots of representation and lots of experience and knowledge that people want to bring and invest in the federation, so we can become stronger and we can become more diverse, but also really represent the affiliates. You know, the UK, you know, we're not as big as the US, you know, but it is culturally, we're very diverse, and we need those affiliates to be involved so that we can make sure that we represent them and their communities, because they're all unique. And, you know, the North, the South, the Welsh, the Scottish, from Northern Ireland, they're all very different. And, you know, the like I say, it's been quite humbling how many people really want to come on board and get involved. And it's because what Harry's said numerous times, they are so passionate about the sport and they want to see a future for the sport in the UK, but also globally as well.
Yeah, and it's awesome to have people like yourselves that are willing to dedicate your time. As Harry said, it's not a paid position. It's dedicating your time and your effort and your work and your knowledge to be able to put this organization together. So hopefully more and more people will step up. Maybe that'll help you guys lighten the load a little bit there. And then more and more athletes, more and more facilities, so that there's more recognition, so that more affiliates end up joining, and you guys can continue to help blaze a path for the rest of the world here within the functional fitness sport.
Well, Michael, seems like a great moment just to say thank you so much on behalf of the council members who are here from Fitness Racing Federation UK. Just thank you very much for having us on today, for asking such great questions. And look, we'll see you on we'll see you in LA 2028, mate. And that's the aim. And watching our athletes walk out on the opening ceremony and throwing down the first Olympic Games to have competitive functional fitness. That's what we're aiming for. And I think we're going to do it.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Thank you guys for your time, for sharing your knowledge, for sharing your insight and what you guys are doing over there with Fitness Racing Federation. LA 2028. But before then, hopefully we're going to see each other all soon in person at maybe it's not going to be a continental cup. We'll call it a world championship in the future here. So thank you guys all. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. It's Labor Day weekend here in the US. We get an extra holiday on Monday.
Yay.
Oh, we just had our extra holiday on Monday just gone. So yeah.
Okay. What holiday?
It's just called the late summer bank holiday. It's not very inventive.
Yeah, quite boring, but it's an extra day off work.
Yeah. Well, that's always nice anyways.
Thank you, Michael.
All right,
Thanks,
guys. Thank
Michael.
you. Have a good
All the
weekend.
best. Catch you later, mate.
Bye-bye.